You spoke about the word Veer and you mentioned Indira Gandhi. Now there are people from his family and who claim to be, following Gandhi's ideals. They say that they call Veer Savarkar Mafi Veer.
I think Mafi unko mangni chahiye. Ek baar they should listen to and learn from their dadi what was going on. Hindutva एक राजनैतिक, भूगोलिक, सांस्कृतिक इतिहास है, किसी धर्म का नहीं. जो हिंद को माने, अपना माने, वो हिंदू है. He loved movies. Mr. Gandhi did not like movies. In fact, all these Nirmata, Nirdeshak and all these titles that come in Hindi movies now were started by Mr. Savarkar. He translated them.
Are you prepared for, what kind of reactions will come in? Because, people will be quick to jump on and, label you as, there is some sort of leanings, some political leanings. That's why you made this movie.
I might have any political leanings as a citizen, and I have a right to, right? But artist and the artwork are two different things.
Hello and a very warm welcome, viewers. I'm Rakta Mishra with you, and today we have a very special guest with us in our Republic studios. You've seen him in a romantic boy role. You've seen him in action-packed movie. You've seen him in Hollywood. You've seen him in challenging roles like playing Charles Shobraj or in the movie Sarabjit. But this time, it is a very challenging, maybe the most challenging of his career up until now, and a very controversial figure. That is Veer Savarkar, Swatantra Veer Savarkar. That is Randeep Hooda's directorial debut, and he is, of course, playing the role of Veer Savarkar. Thank you so much, Randeep, for joining us here in the studios.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations for your debut. You have written the film, you have directed the film, and this is a movie right after your marriage. We saw that was a beautiful ceremony we saw.
Yes,
so congratulations for that also.
Thank you.
But the first thought that comes to us is that why Savarkar? You could have made films on many other characters or any other stories because it's your debut. So people try and play safe and something that might not be very polarizing. So why Savarkar?
My first question is back to you: is why not Savarkar? If there have been movies made in the 80s on Mr. Gandhi, Sardar Patel, there have been movies, I have done other biopics like Raja Ravi Verma, Sarabjit, I played Inspector Avinash, also in a web series. So my first question is why not Savarkar? And that's the first question. And the second is that I did not really choose to to initiate this project. It came to me as an actor. And once I started reading about him, I realized there is so much not known about him and so many, so much miscommunication about him and so many lies and propaganda said in his name that it infuriated me that a man of his stature, a great poet, a great writer, an ideologue who coined the term Hindutva and the ideology behind it, a guy who has been brushed under the carpet, a guy who influenced all the other armed revolutionaries through his book, where he changed the point of view of 1857, a Sepoy mutiny, to 1857, the first war of independence for India. All these things that he did, and he was persecuted by the British and then by the following governments in India, and by brushing his story under the carpet. So I took it upon myself as a challenge to bring his story to the fore and clear the propaganda spread in his name. And I think, I don't know, maybe his spirit chose me to represent him and make a movie on him and tell the story as a director and act in it as an actor.
You feel there has been a deliberate attempt to actually malign Savarkar and actually belittle his role in the freedom movement?
I think it started when he was falsely accused in Bapu's assassination. The first the first decree that was issued was that you cannot arrest Mr. Savarkar unless there is judicial proof. And then subsequent one came that you can, even if there is no judicial proof, you should arrest him because his history and ideology says so. He was accused in that case, and then the court ruled that not only that there is no evidence, there is no connection that can be formed in his name. I think that was the beginning of undoing his contributions, because there were three main parties in India at that time: the Muslim League, the Hindu Mahasabha, and the Indian National Congress. Most of the Muslim League people had gone to Pakistan, and by accusing Mr. Savarkar in Mahatma Gandhi's assassination, they vilified the Hindu Mahasabha, which was almost decimated, and Indian National Congress won almost unopposed in 1952. So many lakhs of Hindu people had migrated from the place which is now Pakistan to India, and people were unhappy with the way Indian National Congress handled the partition. So there was a wave that was coming. It is my deduction from the entire thing. And then when he died, many people turned up for his funeral. Unimaginable people turned up for his funeral, because after that accusation on Bapu's assassination, he was kind of isolated. Seeing that, they again put a non-judicial commission on him called the Kapoor Commission, which again found in his finding that the sword of doubt still hangs over him. So every time he has kind of had a resurgence, he has come back stronger. And now, after many years after his passing and 75 years after independence was given to us, he is still today more relevant because of his ideology of Hindutva.
You mentioned Bapu, you mentioned Mahatma Gandhi, you also mentioned about partition and of course his role in freedom movement. Your trailer makes many references to Mahatma Gandhi. There are scenes about the meeting between Mahatma Gandhi and Veer Savarkar, and there is an opening line about ahimsa and the clash of the ideologies. And also you mentioned about how freedom has been delayed. It was delayed by 35 years. We could have gotten independent much before, but it was because of Mahatma Gandhi.
It wasn't because of Mahatma Gandhi per se. Indian National Congress was formed in 1885 by A.O. Hume as a liaison body between the British-educated natives and the imperialists. It was a party more of a national party of negotiating things, and the things that they were negotiating were more people should be given civil jobs, civil administration jobs, more people should be allowed to enter in the Gymkhana. They were asking for constitutional amendments, but they were not being given to them. So there were two ideologies at that time. One was the Garam Dal and the Naram Dal, hardliners and the moderates, even in the Congress. So what became a very long process, these armed revolutionaries felt that they were only a handful of Britishers and they could be killed and scared out of India in no time. In the first decade of the 1900s, there were many secret societies across India in touch with each other in Europe and America, which were plotting another revolution like 1857, but then they were smuggling guns and bomb manuals to India, which were then subsequently used against the British. And when Mr. Tilak praised Khudiram Bose for his attempt at the armed struggle, when he threw a bomb at a carriage, he was sent to Mandalay in Burma. So anybody who took up arms or had a hardline attitude towards the British was sent away from the mainland into prisons so that they cannot even infect the people inmates in the jail with revolutionary ideas. So had these two things, and Mr. Savarkar was accused in the Pandit Jackson assassination case, which was done by a young man called Anant Kanhare. They traced the gun back to the same guns that were sent by Mr. Savarkar. So again, he was also sent to Kalapani with a two lifetime sentence, which was 50 years. He was supposed to be released in 1960. So after these two things happened, the moderates again took over, and it became a process of negotiating the freedom or independence of India rather than taking it from them.
Well, I like how articulately you've actually detailed out all the history, but we don't really read about it in our textbooks. I haven't in as much detail as you're telling. And I think it's a shame we haven't.
Even I also read 1857 as a Sepoy mutiny, which in 1907 Mr. Savarkar had written a book, The First War of Independence, 1857, but that was not changed. Mr. Bhagat Singh was in the textbooks as terrorists even till very recently. So see, the victor writes the history. It is natural. it's what anybody would do. So once the Indian National Congress was selected to form the government in 1947, they rewrote the history in a way which favored the movement, Indian National Congress movement, and it also seemed that a handful of people in that won us the freedom, which was, I'm not denying their claims to it, I'm not denying their contribution to it. In fact, while reading Mr. Savarkar, I read a lot about Mr. Gandhi as well, and they were, they respected each other. They had mutual respect for each other. In fact, the last bail plea for Mr. Savarkar was written on the advice of Mahatma Gandhi, and he said, I know you're a very prolific writer, but do not write these long petitions, just stick to the facts, and there is no emotion involved in law. Stick to the facts and say these people have been released. And he wrote these bail pleas. He was a lawyer, so he wrote these bail pleas not for himself but for many people. And in the end, he used to write, even if releasing me is standing in the way of your goodwill and generosity towards the political prisoners, I may be exempted from it. So they both wanted the same thing. They both wanted united, independent or free India, but their paths to it were different. They met 3 times in their lives, which is well documented, which is a part of my movie, and I put forth the arguments of both. In fact, in this movie, I don't call him Veer. I want people to go and decide for themselves whether he was a Veer or not. So all these things happened, and in fact, Mrs. Indira Gandhi wrote after his death that he was brave, his contribution to the Indian freedom struggle was immense, and his contribution in the nation formation was great. And she issued a stamp and donated to the Savarkar Smarak in Bombay. So there are many things that have happened, but I think just vilifying him for a political discourse, to attack him because he's the father of Hindutva, is just demeaning a lot of the other efforts.
And I'll come to Hindutva, but you spoke about the word Veer and you mentioned Indira Gandhi. Now there are people from his family and who claim to be following Gandhi's ideals. They say that they call Veer Savarkar Mafi Veer. Now he's a Mafi Veer, and there are also all sorts of insults that are actually blurted out against Veer Savarkar in the public discourse. What do you have to say to these people?
I think it is done to attack the opposition. It's more politically motivated, and I think maafi unko mangni chahiye. Ek baar they should listen to and learn from their dadi what was going on. But I'm not going to get into that. Mafi Nama, jaise usko bolte hain, was a bail petition which is a part of the legal system. Whenever you are incarcerated, it's a right for you to file in bail petitions. He was 27 years old when he was sentenced for 50 years. Here is a man who's an ideologue, who's an opinion maker, who's an influencer, who has so much to give politically, revolutionarily, and culturally and societally to people. And he felt he was being wasted there, and he used Sam Dam Dand Bhed to try and get out of there and get back into it. Unfortunately, when he was released from Kalapani after 11 years, he was 3 years in prison in the mainland, and when he was finally released from prison, he was put under house arrest in Ratnagiri, and he had 3 conditions on him. He cannot take part in any political activity, he cannot take part in any religious activity, and he cannot take part in any revolutionary activities. So that was the thing, and it was only for 5 years. And then 5 years later, they extended it again because they found out that he's been writing articles under somebody else's name, and his brother has been publishing it. Then it was really increased 5 years more when he raised a black flag when they hung Mr. Bhagat Singh. And then subsequently, so I want to ask just one question. If he was such a Mafi Veer, so to speak, an apologist of the British and a stooge of the British, why did they keep him in captivity for 27 years of his life? Why did they not let him go? So they knew that this man was very dangerous because of his power of convincing people, and they kept him under wraps, and he was watched by the British CID since he was 17 years old till independence, and post that by the coming governments.
You also mentioned about in the movie, and I've seen in a couple of interviews where you've spoken about that people from the Congress were not actually being punished in the Kalapani.
It is a fact. We have seen the records of the Kalapani prison, and there is no one from the Congress who has taken up, he was sent to Kalapani because they believed in non-violence. Well, actually, Gandhiji believed in non-violence. Indian National Congress at that time and subsequently has used that as a tokenism, because post Bapu's assassination, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar's younger brother, Narayan Rao Savarkar, who was a doctor, was mob lynched in Girgaon Chowpatty in Bombay when the Chitpavan Brahmin massacre happened in Maharashtra. And subsequently what happened after 1984. So we have to separate Mahatma Gandhi, who was the apostle of non-violence, and from the political side of the Indian National Congress.
And since you mentioned Kalapani, you also went there, you visited Kalapani, we've seen those pictures, and there were a human rights violation that took place. Nobody talks about it. There are people of the same fraternity or the same group that talks about human rights of Kasab or Yaqub Memon, but nobody mentions about even what Veer Savarkar had to go through before actually labeling him as Mafi Veer or anything.
Yeah, so there was a big, there was not just Mr. Savarkar, there were many prisoners over there, and many of them wrote pleas, and many of their pleas were written by Mr. Savarkar. Well, I visited there, and it is an inhuman place where if you want to see an example of colonial brutality, which is kind of fading from our memory, one should visit Kalapani, the cellular jail over there, which was, in fact, it had 7 wings, and all the cells faced the same way. You cannot look at anybody else while you are in there. They were made to work on kolu, to extract oil from the coconuts and make ropes out of coconut husks. It was a grueling work. They were hardly given anything to eat, and the sanitation was a big problem that they also faced. They had to a lot of times use their cells to defecate and all that, and live in that and eat in that, and it was a horrible example of inhuman treatment. They wanted to break the spirit of these bomb golawalas, as they called them. And it had 7 wings. 2 were destroyed by the Japanese to make bunkers out of the stones that were used to make the prison. It was a prison made by prisoners, by the British, made by prisoners for themselves. And then later 2 wings were destroyed under the Nehru government, and they were going to destroy the jail completely till the descendants of the people who went to prison over there interjected and appealed and made a public appeal, and it was stopped. Otherwise, we would not have had a cellular jail today to have a look at the atrocities that these people suffered.
In fact, they also mentioned about how The Essence of Hindutva, a very famous book, was written by him in jail. Later on, he also went on to write Who is a Hindu? We also see glimpses in the trailer how he was also against, forced conversions were taking place in the jails. So he actually fought against many social evils and many evils of colonial rule.
Yes, he was, first of all, he was against the caste system.
Yes.
Gandhiji did make a song on Patita Pavan, yes. But Gandhiji believed in the Varan Vyavastha as a part of our culture. But Mr. Savarkar made the first Patita Pavan Mandir, actually, which was for all people, all human beings, regardless of caste and anything else. And when he went to Kalapani, till then, even the country and Mr. Savarkar's attitude towards anybody else was as an Indian. But once he went there were Pathan warders that persecuted these prisoners, especially the Hindu prisoners, and they would convert them on a roti, or for letting go of the kolu, punishment for the day. And then after that, Khilafat happened, which was basically caliphate. For the caliphate, 2 leaders, Ali brothers from Rai Bareli, started this movement to reinstate the powers of the Caliph of the Ottoman Empire after the British took it away after the victory in the First World War. No other country in the world or Muslims in the world protested against it, but it was Indians, and a caliphate movement was started, which was non-cooperation, because a lot of the posts in the civil services and police were held by the Muslim community. And then Mr. Gandhi, to involve the Muslims in the democracy asked by Indian National Congress, he became the president and called it the Khilafat movement. And because a lot of Muslim leaders at that time believed that when the British came, it was a sultanate, when they leave, it should be a sultanate. So to counter that, he coined this all-unifying political ideology of Hindutva, which is that agar हिंदुत्व एक राजनैतिक, भूगोलिक, सांस्कृतिक इतिहास है, किसी धर्म का नहीं. जो हिंद को माने, अपना माने, वो हिंदू है. And he described it as a geopolitical ideology from the Sindhu River to from the Indus River to the sea. Anybody who inhabits this land and calls it the land of their ancestors is a Hindu. Anybody who calls this their motherland, land of their civilization, is a Hindu. And he put in this last clause because there was a fear of a pan-Islamic attack from the northwest frontier province. And most of the people in the British army at that frontier were Muslims. So he felt, will they fight for the British, for the country, or for religion? So he put in the last clause, which is the contentious clause, that this should be a land of your faith as well, and your karam bhumi, so to speak. Whoever adhered to that and put country before religion or anything else was a Hindu by geographical definition, and that was the philosophy of Hindutva, which was formed as an all-encompassing philosophy for our independence.
So you mentioned, and in fact he was also, his slogan was one caste, one religion, one God,
yes,
one India.
He believed in intercaste marriages. He felt that in 4 generations people will forget what caste they are and only remain Hindu. He was a very scientific man. He loved movies. Mr. Gandhi did not like movies. In fact, all these Nirmata, Nirdeshak and all these titles that come in Hindi movies now were started by Mr. Savarkar. He translated them. He was a very scientific man. He was a very modern man in that sense. In the early 1900s, he was this big romantic revolutionary that everybody idolized to. And then he was also a result of the circumstances at that time. To look at anybody, whether it is Mahatma Gandhi, Mr. Savarkar, or anybody else at that time, from the prism of today, is being unfair to them. We should first see their circumstances that existed at that time, and then make our decisions. And in the West, Americans, they give us, they've been spreading this propaganda with their movies that they are the good guys, they're the most powerful guys. They don't tell you about Vietnam and Afghanistan, how they spent trillions of dollars to replace Taliban with Taliban over 20 years and killing so many people. Even the aliens, they only land in America. But in our own country, we are shooting down our heroes. We are not even talking about them. So I think it's about time
people are up in arms if we talk about Savarkar.
Yes. See, the whole world has an image of our non-violence, and Mahatma Gandhi galvanized the common man in India with his lathi symbolism and his dhoti, and put everybody who walked with him as a part of the freedom struggle. That was a great galvanizing he did, and he played a most important part in our freedom struggle. And he's also our thing of non-violence to the world. But non-violence, would that mean that we don't have any defense also? Mr. Nehru also believed that we don't need an army. And after the 1962 humiliation in the China War, General K.N. Cariappa, the then Field Marshal, had said that the country would have been better off had they listened to Mr. Savarkar and his militarization. So he always believed that we should arm ourselves. Look at Ukraine. They're the biggest nuclear arsenal, but they gave it up. Now they're being beaten from both sides. So, and our position in the world today is, of course, our diplomacy is great, our economy is great, we've got a large number of young people, but we are also armed with very modern weapons, and we make our own weapons, which was the dream of Mr. Savarkar, that we should arm ourselves, and only then we will have say in the world, and then we can talk about non-violence and peace.
Do you think things are changing in the past few years, that you are now able to make films on such topics and such figures?
I don't know. Movies are based on economics as well. Although in this movie I only got impressed by Mr. Savarkar, and I don't know if they had been allowed a movie earlier or not, but I was able to make it, and I had a lot of difficulties doing it. It took me 2 years to make this movie, and I put my tan man dhan, so to speak, even my own money, my house and everything, to bring it to the fore. And I wanted to release it on Independence Day, actually. Okay. That would have been the biggest day for him. And then 26th January. But it just did not work out for the movies. A lot of problems were going on. And finally we were coming one day before Shahidi Day, Divas, which is 22nd of March. And I don't know, maybe Mr. Savarkar wished it to be released around when all parties are campaigning in politics, so that his word could get out to more people.
Well, of course, Hindutva has been dominating all the campaigning. There is, talks about one nation and, one God like Savarkar did. There is a call for UCC also. There are steps taken towards that.
He was very miffed that the Indian National Congress, to appease the Muslims at that time to join the democratic movement through Khilafat, then made separate electorates for them and gave them disproportionate percentage of seats in the provisional government at that time. And he felt that nobody should be given more right than the other citizen, and there should be no discrimination in religion, there should be no discrimination in all that. Everybody should have that power, that one vote should count equally for everyone.
What does Savarkar mean to you after doing this role? What have you taken from him?
A revolutionary in thought, in action, and in writing.
And are you prepared for what kind of reactions will come in? Because people will be quick to jump on and label you as there is some sort of leaning, some political leanings. That's why you made this movie.
I might have any political leanings as a citizen, and I have a right to, right? But artist and the artwork are two different things. Artist is a larger entity, and there's a particular artwork that he's created. I just want to ask this question. Had I made a movie on Mr. Nehru, and I would have made it with same amount of dedication, what would you label me then? It is a movie, and I've made a thriller of a movie. I've treated it very modern, in a modern way, not the so-called state biopics that we have been making in our country with the whitewashing. I've created a lot of drama, a lot of thrill, and I've heightened the imagery with a lot of camera work, so that it looks larger than life, and people can see in hindsight what had really happened in a very engaging way. I'm giving no lectures on Desh Bhakti or the freedom struggle. I'm just telling the story as it is. And you go home and decide whether he was Veer and what his contribution was or was not.
And finally, Randeep, acting, writing, directing, you've donned many hats now. What about politics?
Politics is a career in itself, and the way I sincerely approach anything that I do in my life, that would be putting a big hurdle in my career is in cinema, and I have a lot more to give in terms of cinema, and I'm really concentrating on that, and I'm really looking forward to how the public reacts to my directorial debut, not just the acting that I've done. And
you're shifting to acting again, but I'm sticking to your politics, the part of politics. Will you be open to in future, if not today? Because there have been talks, because there are elections going on. I think you're from Haryana. There are talks of maybe you might get a ticket. You come from Rohtak.
I think it's a bit early for me to jump into politics. As I said, it's a career in itself.
You're open to it sometimes in future?
Yeah, in the future, why not? Why not? I mean, it's a great way to serve the people and be the part of the legislature assembly.
Right. All right. But thank you so much. It was such an enlightening and insightful conversation to have with you. It's so great to have actors from the mainstream talk about our history so well. And all the best, Randeep.
Thank
you. To our audience, of course, if you want to say anything, your movie is going to release in just...
Please go and watch the movie on 22nd of March in a cinema near you and see an untold part of history, and then judge for yourself about the comparison between violence and non-violent contribution to our thing, and get entertained and engaged, and go home and think about it.
Thank you so much, Randeep. Thank you so much.
Thank you.